Rod Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. That's a really nice vibe to come into the show on. We just added that, a few weeks back, a couple of weeks ago. So here we are again. Great day. Michael has joined us here. He's sitting in the green room. We were talking about a couple of different things. One thing I forgot to mention, Michael, if this is Insights and Straight Talk, right? And it's for the middle class, so everybody's got to know, the expertise that you're bringing has a journey, and the journey started officially, but there was something, and there was a life before that that led to that. Love that part of the story, and it sets up really nicely for the mindset of this journey, right? So anyway, and speaking of that, Mr. Dorfman is amazing dude. I mean, I'm 20 years younger than him, and he's acts 20 years younger than me. So that's the whole vegan part of his conversation. We were just talking about Robert Kennedy in the new administration. So that part of what, and there's more. I'm just giving you a little nugget right now. So hang on. The vegan part is the health and how the drug administration, the food administration are working us over. Sorry, guys, if you hear in the background, I got a couple 100-pound dogs in there, and they're just goofing around. They should settle down shortly. They just like to say hi to everybody as we come on. So that part of what we're talking about today, what Michael's going to run some shine on the shade that we have about all this, because the second part is that same sort of, but deeper now. He's written a couple of books. Both books are based on what we're talking about today. And what we're talking about in that second part, I was telling the men, producer Barbie and I were talking right before I came out, and before he and I got together a number of minutes ago. And everything about the government's manipulating information with the media to change the narrative and to make more effective their imposition, their power over us. So with that, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. People are starting to flow in here. That's great. Good to see you guys. Please keep up the support. Keep it growing. We're starting to get more and more people that are into the show, and that helps. We're moving forward and trying to get better. But at this point, I just got to bring on Michael and say, hey, there's my next best buddy friend.
Hey, great to be here, Rod.
It is. I'm glad you're here. We were really, it's an interesting concept, both two different subject matters of sorts. But they're leaning into each other, and they're extremely timely. And your story's fascinating. So, like I said in the beginning, let's step back a little bit. And the journey is the journey, and the books are that journey, and that's why we're here talking about it, those subject matters. But there was stuff before that mindset I was talking to you about when you're in the green room there. Give us the pre-journey, if that makes sense. How did it all begin? Besides the fact you were born on let's skip a little further ahead, but how did you get this direction?
Well, I think it was Vietnam, the war in Vietnam, and I became I really believed. We'll talk about a little bit about the government. I really believed that the government was always telling us the truth. I grew up like that, and so when the Vietnam War started, it was like, how could, of course they have us, they know what they're doing. So I believe that. And actually I did 6 months of National Guard service. And I
At
had,
that time?
this was in, this was in early, this was the beginning. It was like 1961, I believe, that I did that. And I went in and it was like the war was just beginning. And,
Yeah.
but, I believe that. So I went through my basic training, and it was 6 months, and I had to go to my weekly meetings. And I had some friends who were on the other side. They were listening to the music, the
Ah,
Bob
yes.
Dylan, all these things, the
Free
protests.
love.
Yeah, absolutely. And so
Hate Ashbury Street in San Francisco. That's where it
Ac-
all started,
it
right?
all started. Actually, I lived there for a while.
Did you
Uh,
really?
yeah, I went from New
That
York
must have
to
been wild, man.
that
Must
was
have been
way back there. It was
yeah.
63. So anyway, so I became involved as an activist, and I started reading underground newspapers, and I started waking up, and to things were not that great as it was, they were telling us it was. And
Right.
and and that's what happened. I was in well, I'm gonna get I could, yeah, I'm gonna tell it like it is. So
Hey,
anyway,
hey, you don't have a hard stop, do you?
what?
Like I told you earlier, we may go probably a little bit more than an hour, depending on. You
No,
don't
I'm
have to stop,
okay.
right? You
No,
okay? Because
not at all.
dig, baby, dig. Go tell us the truth. That's what we're all about here. That's what it's all about, man.
Okay, so I was in when I started learning about what was happening, I didn't like to be in the National Guard anymore, so I had to go to meetings every week, and I didn't like that because I didn't believe that anymore. So I started. I didn't go to there were a few meetings. I was missing the meetings, and I would borrow my father's car to go to the meetings. But instead of going to the meetings, I used to go to the racetrack. So, and that's what was going
Horses,
on.
ponies,
Or
or dogs?
no, it was the harness racing, the Roosevelt
Oh,
Raceway.
that's good stuff. Love that. Love that. Yeah. Go ahead.
So so anyway, I told who was the commanding officer, I really was looking for a unit that you didn't have to go to meetings every week. And they told me that there is it was the Ready, what was it? The
Reserve?
Ready Reserves. Yeah, I could join the
Yeah.
Ready Reserves. And they told me there was a unit in San Francisco. So I went to San Francisco to get into this unit so I didn't have to go to the meetings. But the caveat of all that was that if the National Guard and the reserves were called up, I would be I would be first to go. So that was
Right.
the deal. So I went to California, San Francisco, and I lived there for a while. I joined the Ready Reserve, and I was in actually 2 years postgraduate school in Queens College in Queens
New York.
in
Yeah.
psychology, and so I got I just everything turned around for me, and I went back after a few months living in San Francisco. I went back to New York, and I decided that because I had the change in what I was searching for, I was looking for more, searching for inside myself, and looking for another meaning of life. So I actually dropped out of school in a graduate school, and I came down to I went to
Mid
Mexico.
20s? You were like, oh,
It was
yeah.
the early 23, 24, I think it was more like. So I came
Sounds
down,
okay.
actually I drove down on a motorcycle
To Mexico.
to Mexico. Yeah, I came down to motorcycle, and that's where I lived, and that's where I met because I've been living in Mexico for 45 years. So I went back to the U.S. in the early 80s for 6 years, but came back to Mexico again. But I loved it so much. So my wife is from
Beautiful.
Mexico, and my sons are from Mexico. One is living in California actually now. He feels more American, and the other, my older son, feels more Mexican. So he lives here in Mexico.
That makes sense.
So what happened to get back to? So I was. It ended up in 1968 that Nixon called up the National Guard, and I received a letter, and I was there on the beach in Chetumal, which is the capital of where Cancun is in Quintana Roo. I was on the beach there, and I received the waiters in the restaurant. They gave me this letter and said I had to report for duty. So I went and I wrote about this in my book, and I was going through this for a couple of days, and here I am in this country that has no army, and I'm looking at I saw what was going on, and I made the decision to stay on the beach and stay in Mexico, and I didn't go back to the States actually until Nixon. He what was it? He gave. All the people who were considered, conscientious objectors, he pardoned them. I didn't go back because I didn't know what was going to happen, so I was afraid to go into the States until that.
A lot of people went to Canada, so it wasn't. There was a lot of that going on. Absolutely, it was a crazy. It was a conflicting time because of what you were just saying. That's the first peak that we had into. I've always been so proud. At least we live in a democratic republic. It's for the people, by the people, of the people. And that Vietnam was the first crack that opened behind the curtains that we're not really telling the truth. And that was my generation. That was the generation that the baby boomers and had that effect on it. But then we got fooled again. And the manipulation, that the second part, the manipulation about getting into false narratives. These are all things that are just getting worse and worse.
Absolutely.
And worse and worse, Go ahead.
Yeah. So from there, then I started writing at that time in my 20s. And I wrote about, and then I doing some more research into things I wasn't sure about. Like the next thing I got into was cigarettes, and that was the health part. So when I was in the 50s, I was smoking. I was 12 years old. Everybody was smoking at that time. The movies, everybody smoked in the movies, and
drink in one hand, a cigarette in the other.
Absolutely, with Humphrey Bogart. I mean, it was those were the days.
Yeah.
So I was smoking. That was it. And there was no connection at all to, cancer or any kind of diseases at that time. So I was smoking at 12. My parents, one of their favorite gifts was getting a carton of cigarettes. So they got, this is like birthday present with cartons of cigarettes. So I was smoking at 12, even though I wasn't supposed to. We'd get somebody to buy our cigarettes for us, hide in the closet, just different things, making sure they didn't, catch us. So that what was happening. And I got into it more because I started finding out that, all this time that the cigarettes were okay, and even doctors were sponsoring it and athletes were sponsoring it. So the doctors were telling you, it's great, it's great for your breath. It's great for, if you're pregnant as a woman, it's even great for your teeth.
It's great for your breath.
It's great for your breath. It's great for your teeth. Everything. It was great for everything. So, and then the athletes were completely behind it. So I started doing research into that, and I found out, because it was a Surgeon General that came up in, I think it was the end of the 60s, saying, talking about the connection to cancer. And then I found out that during that time, those 20 years from the 50s to the 70s, there were thousands of studies connecting the cigarettes to cancer. So there was that, that was the big, another big lie, and who was behind it? It was the cigarette companies. They had so much power over the politicians, over the doctors, the same way it happens now with the drug companies. So this is what
lobbyists.
The lobbyists.
You remember how hard that was to get? Like in the 80s, was it the 80s? Probably late 80s. in there, there was this battle to have warnings put on the cigarette packs, and to have the cigarette Philip Morris and others, bring these reports to life, because it started to get exposed. That
Exactly.
was a complete, utter lie what they were doing that whole time. And now Philip Morris is one of the biggest food company businesses in the world. Wow, there's something weird, huh?
They'll find their way. It's like
Absolutely.
they'll get into any business that'll do it. It's like, for example, the drug companies are involved in vitamins and minerals and
Supplements. Yep.
supplement. It's that's where it's going. So the next thing that happened, which was a big thing for me, was it was Iraq. The war in Iraq with the weapons of mass destruction, and I was seeing this, and it was like it was all over again. The lies were coming down because they wanted to go to war, for whatever reason, it was that Bush was pushing. They wanted to go to war, and that was the reason to do it. And we listened to that, and I knew what was happening, and many people knew what was happening, but it
started to catch on.
It proceeded, and then all the wars we got in after that, and so that's what continued this research and my interest in starting to write about this again.
Absolutely, man. That is crazy. Hey, can we hit on a couple of these, because they're kind of matching up starting now. I still want to get into your background, want to get into the actual message. So do you do much on social media? Maybe this is for me.
Well, I don't know. Yeah,
Jason.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. Jason Tilley here. He's asking, what role do social media platforms play in spreading manipulated narratives? And it's a huge role, as you can imagine. That's what we are. We're part of that pushing back, right?
Yeah. Well, my first experience, it was before the vaccines came out. This was in November of 2020, and the vaccines came out in January. So I was already. I had published my first book, which was the Thriving Vegan, which I'll talk about the whole thing with veganism, which is really important.
Absolutely.
The Thriving Vegan, and it was in November. And one of my favorite doctors, plant-based doctors, was Dr. Michael Greger, and he used to have on Facebook and YouTube. He would have these conferences, and in these conferences you can ask questions. So I had heard that about the vaccines that were going to come out. So I asked the question, how do we know the vaccines will be safe? And immediately there was a pop-up, and it was from Facebook, and it said that you're the only one who could see this question because it's going against community standards. And it was like, what is that? I had never heard about that.
2020, you said?
The end of 2020.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I
started. So it just was. I was stunned by it. I didn't understand it that much. And then eventually, because I started my Facebook, I had my Facebook, Go Whole Food Vegan, and I was getting a lot of followers. I had over 3,000 followers. And then I started writing about the vaccines.
You go, man. You go. That's big.
I was writing about
back then.
I was writing about vaccines, and then it was said that, what I would do, I would promote my website, my Facebook page, and I would keep getting followers and people interested in what I was writing. And then Facebook said I was definitely not going to be. They were not going to allow me to promote anymore. And even I created with my wife. We had another Facebook page. It was Lola Vegan. It was the vegan wave in Spanish. It was in Spanish. So we were writing about food, and that she was publishing her recipes, and we were writing about plant-based milks milk as a substitute for regular milk, and why low in saturated fat may be good for losing weight. The same thing happened. They blocked us again, and we couldn't do anything. So here we're talking about, this was Facebook, and I was being blocked, and that's when I knew what was happening with the media. And same thing with I had a YouTube channel, and so I was a little man, I didn't have tens of thousands of followers or anything like that, but it was way back at the beginning of the whole pandemic,
exactly.
When this was happening. And then, so
I
that
didn't
was,
even know this.
yeah. So this is what happened.
Jason opened up some information whoop ass on us here. That's you're like, the trend is here, and you were out here, and leading the way, and unfortunately caught in the stuff that became worse and worse and worse and worse, and now it's exposed and is kind of backing up a little bit. I think a little bit more freedom. You're talking about freedom of expression, the American idealism of freedom of expression. Let's get one more. Let's get another one in here, because I've got like a dozen and a half I'm way behind on. And this is a good question. Thanks, Jason. How can we protect ourselves from information overload, overlord too, and
Right.
distortion. And really what we're doing is having discussions that then are not overload, they're thinning that stuff out. So am I taking a good take on that, or what do you think, Michael?
Yeah, well, it's not easy anymore,
No, it's
because it's getting worse and worse because of the overload of information. How do you know what the truth is, or how do you know what to believe? And that's what, for me, it takes a lot of research, a lot of diving into and finding out who you could trust. And I've found, there are,
Yep.
channels, YouTube channels, and people I listen to because it just sounds like they're telling the truth. And when you start hearing other people saying that, and and so you start, going towards a different alternative, media. When with the whole thing was happening with the vaccines and the pandemic, I mean, some of these people were geniuses. They were brilliant, doctors and nutritionists and epidemiologists. And I start listening to them. They're saying the exact opposite of what the mainstream narrative was. So he said, I'm going there because if I don't know what's happening on both sides of the story, I can't possibly know what the truth is, or make my own decision what the truth. So that's what I had to do is, and I still do, is I listen to, I doubt everything. I doubt everything, and especially now when you have the clickbaits, and it's amazing, so it really takes a lot. But I follow people who are, and platforms and YouTube, YouTube programs that will allow other speakers to come on, that won't just be pushing one side of the story. And that's what I listen to. And what I like, some of them have, they listen to different sides of the story. So you're listening and you say, this sounds right. That sounds right. This I don't know so much about. So, I don't know if I go along with that. So this is what it is when you do research. I research like, maybe 2-3 hours a day. And I have my two topics, which is the health part, and the other one is what's happening geopolitics around the world. And, then I got into the whole thing with the climate change thing. It's like, I started to say, why is everybody, going, every time I see that everybody agrees with something, it's like, let me see what's going on with that. And I sort of like the idea what, Trump did on that, just, questioning that whole side and getting out of the Paris agreement, because, and it's really good, as long as we still get both sides of the story, but that's really important. So that's what I, different issues which I'm interested in. So that's why I get into the different ones. But yeah, finding
It's
good
being
stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's being curious and not um, judgmental, right? You got to be curious about this stuff. Like building on what you're saying. I mean, I can go to CNN or worship MSNBC for an extreme, and let's say Fox News for their very conservative, very left, and then CNN really leans hard left, and you'll listen to the same exact situation on one and the other. I listened to the I-24, the Jerusalem, and BBC, and you know what their tilt is because that same exact story is being said differently. And you know when they're really trying to manipulate something, when it's just talking about emotion. This feels wrong. This is, there's no statistics.
Mm-hmm.
It's about getting the soft part of you to believe that narrative. And it's been going on forever. And it really, really, really sucks. So that's why shows like you're talking about, people don't trust that other story, because I want to know the truth, like you said. And it's our lives. It's our grandbabies' lives. It's the future. You said in your thing, before we lose it, and planet Earth. I mean, what was it, Greta? That 16-year-old that was chewing us all out, that said we're going to be dead in 12 years. And that was like 20 years ago. And I mean, it's, this goes back to Clinton's, who's Clinton and vice president, the tree hugger. He making money off of the environment. That's where this all really became a thing, because now green energy, this and that. But it may even go further. And what are your thoughts on this? Is there a undercover government world order thing where they're trying to manipulate us, put us, you got to stay at home during the vaccine. You have to do this. You have to do that, and separating us in little boxes so that they can control and move us into a different world order. I mean, that's the extreme, but is it extreme or is it?
Well, the thing is that you can't listen. They won't allow you to listen to the other side of the story. And,
Exactly.
All these tens of thousands of scientists who are following, saying, yeah, there is the problem with, it's a man-made problem with CO2 and everything. And, they're the ones who get funded. Then you have the other groups of scientists that, and there are thousands of them who are, against, looking at the other side of the story, but they don't get funded because they won't fund it. They won't fund you. So you won't be able to listen to them. So as far as I'm concerned, it's this is the same thing that's going on. There's a group behind that's where you have to doubt everything, because there's the power and the money that's behind, the green movement. So that's why it's important to start listening to the other side of the story and find out, yes, there's climate change. There's been climate change for billions of years. And the climate goes up and it goes down. And sometimes there's more CO2. Sometimes there's less CO2. Sometimes it's hotter and sometimes it's cooler. We got out in the 1600s was the mini ice age. And now we're in a 300-year warming period, which is, it's hot. I mean, where I live now, the weather is we've been over 100 degrees a few times already. And it was never happened before. San Miguel de Allende, where I live, was one of the coolest climates, in the world. We never got even 100 during the year. And now this is what's happening. So we have to adjust because it's warming up. How far it's going to warm up, we don't know, but it's warming up. But this is the way it's been. The Earth is on a different timetable. Exactly.
Yeah.
In other words,
it own, man.
No, we could do what we want. The Earth is doing what it wants and what it has to do because it's influenced by different laws. So that's what this is. So we have to adjust to what's happening. but the CO2 is actually, and one of the biggest, the most important facts that really changed my whole view on this thing with climate change is that CO2 is what plants breathe. This is what they breathe for photosynthesis, and this is their food, and they give off oxygen, which we love. So, and all of a sudden they want the CO2, zero CO2. What is that all about? But if you don't question that, you just go along with it. And even some of the people that I like on certain other topics will, on geopolitics or the nutrition, they will support. They believe that also there's a climate crisis, and we got to stop this whole thing and reduce the CO2. But it doesn't really matter if CO2 isn't the problem. Sometimes this is throughout history. Sometimes it gets hot and CO2 isn't that high. It isn't that high. Sometimes it gets cold and CO2 is high. When there is a lot of heat and CO2 is when the earth flourishes. That's what it was like in prehistoric times, with the dinosaurs and everything. It was like, it was flourishing all over the world. It was green in Iceland and all over. It was
lush.
Yeah. So that's what we have to understand, that yes, there's a climate change. It's always been there, but we shouldn't be scared that there's a climate crisis and we're in danger and the whole thing, the world is going to get destroyed. The world's going to continue. We may destroy ourselves because of other things we're doing on the planet, with the earth and the pesticides and what they're doing in the oceans, pollution. Yeah, that can hurt us, but as far as the earth is concerned, it's, always going up and down. This is hot and cold.
It's funny you say that, because two things come to mind. One, if you look at the earth, right, we're on such a thin little tiny crust. I mean, the earth goes millions of miles all the way down, and then it goes millions. What is it? 5 miles till you get to the whatever the outer atmosphere.
One sphere, right?
One sphere, and then I mean, little thin, tiny little thing, and it's crazy how we're being convinced that we have that much effect on all that. I remember where the ozone stuff came from, because of hairspray. They were considering hairspray as burning a hole in the atmosphere. Remember that?
Yeah, sure.
That's where it all started. That's where it started to become commercialized. Somebody figured out, hey, we can control them with this fear. And then in the 70s, it was Al Gore's who I was thinking of. That dude made this into a bankroll. And literally, you can look at this new wave of it. Started with that right there.
Inconvenient Truth. That was the movie. I believed in it.
Yes.
Let's get Inconvenient Truth. We'll show it here in Mexico. So.
That'd be cool. I haven't seen that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
One of the first things that started exposing people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So on that point, Jeff's got a good question here. Do you think schools should teach media literacy as a core subject? Because right now schools aren't helping this. They drive in the media, the message. That's a really good question. I mean, it should be made to do that, because media is everything moving forward.
Yeah, it's extremely important. I have a friend who teaches. He's postgraduate. He's a doctorate, postgraduate at Dean University in New York.
Oh, nice.
And he was telling me, he said, and this was years ago. This was way before the pandemic. He was just telling me that how students today are not very smart. That he called it the dumbing down of education in the U.S. and I guess maybe even worldwide, comparing us to what the other countries, I systems. I don't think we're doing that well, and I think that
we're in the lower 40. There's like 47 other countries that are doing better than us, and we spend more than all those countries combined on education.
And education.
little fit racket going on here, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, but absolutely we should start if they'll allow us to do that, teach that's the big problem. What is
Look what Trump's doing.
yeah,
What's Trump doing right now? They're eliminating. I mean, it's crazy with the moment we're living in, isn't it?
uh-huh.
They're
Well, what were you
gonna
going to say? Yeah.
They're going to eliminate the educational. The lady who's taken over the educational secretary is disbanding the current. It's going back to the states, not the national thing that we got. That this gargantuan that has grown, right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
So
as long as
we'll
we're
be able to do it.
Yeah, as long as we have good people behind it,
Gotta have
that is
good
the most important thing, because if the same type of people that are being paid off or, have these other, archaic thoughts and what should be taught, then it's going to continue, so it all depends. So we have to see where it's going, but we really have to, children are smart, and if they should learn what's, and yeah, I remember, like, for example, when we were, during the Vietnam War, we were allowed to protest. We were allowed. If you said something that was against the government, it was okay. Yeah, there were times when it got out of hand and they had like Kent State, with the killings there, but generally they didn't stop the protest. And now it's, it's very difficult. Not only in the U.S., it's difficult to protest. Governments don't like that. Because they have what they want to push.
Depends on what they're protesting. It depends on what's being protested.
That's true.
I mean, you're right about exactly. They want to keep all that down, but depending on who's the protester, there's a little more leniency, right? Or even an encouragement, which sucks. It does, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't like that. When I want to see protest. I write about it in my book. It's like we should, one of the ways we could, if we're against things, is to protest, and to go and vote, and but even that we don't know what's going on with the whole voting process. It's scary. It really is scary.
It is, and what's crazy about that is that people talking like this 20, 30 years ago, you'd think they need a tinfoil hat on, this extreme, conspiracy theory stuff. What's crazy is people are starting to turn because all the conspiracy theories over the last, let's call it 5-10 years, have turned out to be true.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're actually true. And this leads up to what Jeffrey's talking about here. And I like this. Why do people resist questioning the official story, even when facts contradict it? That's the meat of what we're talking about right now. Why? Why do people do that? What do you think?
Well, there's something called confirmation bias, confirmation bias is when you really don't want to, you'll only accept things that go along with the way you think. And then there's this other thing called groupthink, which is you belong to a group and you just, you've got to think out of the box. You have to start questioning everything because, and then there was, what is it called? Conscious dissonance is another thing.
Sticking your head in the sand, they used to call it.
Yeah. Well, conscious dissonance is, you sort of, an example of conscious dissonance is that you smoke cigarettes and it causes cancer. So what do? You can't, these are two conflicting things, thoughts and ideas that you can't handle because it'll cause you too much stress. So you say, okay, I'm getting rid of the thing with the cancer so you just put it out of your mind. So it's a whole psychological thing of that. It's, and it takes effort to question. It takes effort to dive in and listen to the other side of the story. It's more comfortable. And also maybe you just say you can't believe that your leaders would lie to you, or these companies would lie to you, even though they're trying. It's like, we get United States and New Zealand are the only two countries that allow drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, to be advertised on TV. And that's what, and so look at that power that has, and I sort of say, look at it and say, we're going on down that hole if we keep on becoming addicted and dependent on pharmaceutical drugs to cure us, when we have this incredible body that that we really should become healthy. But the power of that, so that so many people, and that's why we're such an unhealthy country. So we have to doubt. We have to say, yeah, I want to know more. I'm curious. I want to know what's really going on, or listen at least to the other side of the story.
Yeah, and it's why not? I mean, maybe before, but we're going into a time where there is so much information. Like you said, there's a lot of noise, and gets, we were just talking about that a little bit ago. It gets frustrating to work your way through. But on the other side of that, if you're willing to be curious, if you're willing to actually look at some things, you should be able to come up with sugar is one of the worst things in the world for you. Nobody knows that. Well, they're starting to, but what you're saying is basically cradle to grave. We're owned by the Food and Drug Administration, and they're basically, like you said, it's okay. Here's a pill. I'll give you a pill. Write your prescription. That'll be $475. Times millions and billions of people. That's the whole gig, and they're just controlling us to go down that range. This we were just touched on a little bit. Jennifer, thank you very much for that. And finish any thought that I cut you off on there, if you would, Michael. But what's your advice to younger generations growing up in this media chaos? First of all, they're growing up in it, so it's a little easier for them, I got to say. It's molding their generation. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that you have to start paying attention to the other media that's not the narrative, because, and one thing I want to mention also, and this goes back with the food industry, and that is that they don't really care. This is one of the tactics. They don't really care if they're giving you good information or they're not giving you good information. They just want to confuse you. So they just put out the false information, or they support, studies that, the food industry supports studies that tell you one side of the story, but they don't care if it's the truth or not the truth, because when you're confused and there's so much information, conflicting information, and when you're confused, what does it matter? I don't even know what to do anymore. And I think a lot of people are like that. And I know that, people, they don't even want to talk about anything, because I play, well, this is older people, and the younger people, I play pickleball a lot. I play, 4 or 5 times a week. And
wow, really?
San Miguel. And we can't talk, talk about politics or any issues like that. And that's what we do. And we enjoy each other, So that's a problem, though. If you don't want to, you just don't want to, because you're afraid of, when you start talking about things that other people may not like to talk, you lose a friend.
Yeah.
And
family members in some case.
Family members.
Bizarre.
That's what happened during the pandemic. And the whole thing with the vaccines and everything. Yeah. So, but it really takes, first of all, you need to it takes a very personal understanding that we're not being told the truth. And that started with me. It started way back, and I just listened to other people. Somebody tells you something, be open to listening to it. It doesn't agree with what you believe. Well, maybe it'll be a good idea to listen to it. And then having a conversation over it, or maybe forming, you have like-minded people, forming a group, and then
watch party. I call it a watch party.
Okay, like a football
cool, huh?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could fill up a football stadium every Sunday, Thursday, and Friday with 90,000 people. You should be able to get 40 different people together for a watch party a couple of
Yeah.
days a week, because this is about us. I mean, we either make it or we don't make it, and right now we're letting it go slipping out of our hands. And what you're hitting on there is people don't want to listen to the other side. And that's a really, it's scary, but it's a bizarre concept.
Yeah.
Like what Joey here is asking. Why do you think people attack those? And what's funny is when they start attacking, it's just yelling at you. It's just calling you this and calling you that. And there's nothing behind that except they don't like you because you wear this or you have that on.
Yeah.
So that's your whole life. That's a world, an actual world. Half of Americans basically are that way. And it's, how did we get here? Why do people still yell at you when you're asking critical questions? That's what built this freaking country.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the big problem. We're afraid to face it. You know, with the well, who was this? Socrates was his form of questioning, the method. You ask if somebody says something, well, why do you believe that? And then well, and sometimes it ends up they don't really know why they believe that. It's something they heard, or it goes along with this, like I said, confirmation bias. Other people in my family believe this or something. I wanted to get into something maybe that's attached to this, and that is when you talked about the watch party, we just mentioned the thing about football. Because I'm a football fan, I'm a basketball fan, I'm a sports fan.
Me too.
And I love movies and things like that. And then I just but when I watch, I just see that it's almost as if it's a distraction. Because when you watch football, or you watch the shows that are talking about football, how is this year going to look, for my team?
ESPN.
Like that.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, it's like almost that other side, the other stuff doesn't exist. It's like trying to paint a picture of this dream world that, forget about all the other
Check
stuff.
out. You can check. Yes.
Don't worry
Check
about
it out.
what the wars are going on the other side of the world, or these problems we have that people, prices are going up and the people are, it's like painting this picture. And as long as you paint the picture, people won't worry about that. Or maybe they just say, I just want to listen to the painted picture so I can keep believing that everything is like incredible here, in the world, everything is incredible.
That goes back to the Romans. You remember they started the gladiators, and that whole thing was to entertain, take the peasants' mind off of what was going on so they could be ruled easier. I mean, this whole system we live in, first of all, our founders set us up to be in control of everything. It's our fault. I think you said that earlier. It's our fault because we're bringing the wrong people in and just checking all blue or checking all red or whatever without actually, I vote on a split ticket periodically. And it's only because there's certain people over here that, we're all sinner, but we all are told what to do by the extremists. And that should be going away because we're smarter than that. We're just lazier than that right now. And Jack here is a little bit going back to what we were talking about, but we talked about conspiracy theories. How can you how can you encourage a debate with somebody? Because we are here. We're still here. It's getting a little better, but we're still here. We all live here. We all have the neighbor next to you. Doesn't matter what he or she is, what their background is. If they have a couple of kids and a mortgage and car bills and maybe some kids going to college in a little bit, they have the same exact concerns as you do. They're exactly the same as you around the dinner table and at voting time. The only time we ever get listened to is at voting time, and then they push us back in the closet. So we need to have those open debates. How do we get into that with, I mean, you've got one side screaming at you.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I think it's very difficult. This is what I concluded, that if a person is so closed, you can see that immediately. They'll don't even bother with that, because you know what it's going to do? It's going to just bring you down. It's going to be, I don't want to get angry, and I don't want to end up with it. Yeah, you never win it, and you end up suffering. There's a what was it? Buddha had this quote once. I remember that when you get angry, you're drinking poison and you're expecting the other person to die. So
that's good. That's really good.
So I don't want to get angry, because that's part of my thing of staying healthy at my age.
Sure.
So I just want, one of the things that when
let it go.
When Kennedy Jr., I remember listening to this before he got into all. This was like, I don't know, a year ago or something like that. He was telling you that every night his father, Robert Kennedy, they had a debate, and they would just pick out one of the themes, their important themes, and that they would change sides. So now you're against that, and now you're for that, and that's the way he grew up, in that debate things. Right. But that's when we had debate, and to me, the whole thing was, during the whole pandemic, is like, and I wrote about this too. It says, how come there's no debate? How come there's no debate of why it works and why it doesn't work, when I see and I'm learning that there are people don't agree with this, because they weren't allowing the debate. They weren't allowing it because they had their agenda, and the agenda was to push it through. And that was the big, but on a personal level, my suggestion would be, find people who are on the fence. They're sort of like people who are listening here, to your show. Maybe they're like on the fence, they're not sure, but they really want more information. That's a starting point, so that you could work with that.
Starting point. It's a starting point. That's a great point to put it that way at the end, because like you said, there's people leaning on both sides. And depending on how that conversation goes, they stay where they are. Maybe you understand something different. You said earlier, if you're telling somebody something and you're not listening, first of all, you have one mouth and you have two ears. That's kind of obvious math. And then beyond that, I've always gone by this. If I'm telling you something, if I'm giving you some knowledge that I have, then I have the opportunity to provide some additional knowledge. If I listen to a point, whether I agree with it or not, but that listening to that point, I now gain additional knowledge that I can have that doesn't go away, right? That's a really special thing.
And it's not easy to do. Listening is a lost art. I mean, I have trouble with that. It's like I'm talking too much, and then I got to remember, I have to listen, because that person may be ready to say something really important. So listening, exactly what you're saying, we have to learn to listen to each other and not to react emotionally. But to get to that point, we have to let go and say, okay, I want to learn. I am open.
You're hitting some dingers, baby. You're hitting some dingers right now. You're hitting them over the fence. You want to learn. Go ahead. I couldn't resist that, man. I'm getting all pumped up with you.
So it's really start off, getting together. I get together with, some people, and, I get together with people that you can talk to and we're willing to listen, and then see where it goes from there. But, it has to expand, but it's changing. It's changing. I mean, it's people, there's more information now. You can't stop your platform. You can't stop others. It's like it's opening up. So there's more opportunity now than there was a couple of years ago, when you would be block censored. You wouldn't be able to listen to anybody. So,
What's
knock
word?
on wood or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like it's changing now.
Yeah, what's the word? You'd be blocked, censored. You'd be what's the word? The media word? You'd be like you'd be. I don't remember what it was. Hey, by the way, we need to keep going down this path, and we're about 12,
Okay.
13 behind. But I want to go back to one thing real quick, and you don't respond to it because I don't want to
Yeah.
divert it. But when you were talking about climate change, I
Yeah.
so much wanted to. There's always been something like you said, the mini ice age, the climate changes, and I wanted to say, every time I hear about the ice caps, the polar ice is melting and this and that, and it's because of all this and that, and then they say, look, we're unburying this caveman 100 feet down in the ice.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so if we're warming up, that means he was there or she was there before that ice cap was 100 feet higher. That's just something that I've always thought curious.
Uh-huh.
So as far as mainstream media, let's
Yeah.
touch on mainstream media. Are they losing their grip, or do you see them evolving into something else? Because they are not even the ones that cover the news, just scratch the top. They don't dig in. That's where people are being fed with shows like this. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's very, very difficult because I think
Yes.
that right now the world is in a situation where either, is war going to happen? Is a wider war going to happen, or it's not going to happen?
Are you
And that
reading what Bradley's saying? Are you reading what Bradley's saying?
no,
He wants you to
no.
dig into that war thing because that's a big deal too. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were reading that or
No, I wasn't reading it. No, I wasn't reading it, but I thought that's where we could go with this. So I think
Ironic.
that's what's happening right now, and we're in a scary time right now because of these forces that are going against each other, and now we're in a world. 100 years ago, it's not the same thing when you have the potential of thermonuclear war can wipe out everything on the planet, and now 9 countries have nuclear weapons, and so it's really something that has to be dealt with. So, but I find that I'm a little bit skeptical because I think that the people of the world want peace. The great majority of the people, the average person wants peace. Doesn't matter where you live. You want to enjoy your life. You want to, have a place to live. When you listen to people from other countries, we talk about the same things. Everybody has the same problems, family problems, money
100%.
problems. What makes us happy is the same thing, having a place to live, a roof over our house, and that everybody really wants peace in their life. They just want to enjoy their lives. That's what we're here to do on this planet, is enjoy our lives, number one. So when you have these things, that doesn't allow us to do it. And I think if you took a poll of the world of 8 billion people, maybe 7.999 would say,
9999.
yeah, I don't want war. What good is war going to do us? And you have these people, these handful of people are pushing this thing, and that's the scariest thing on the planet. And maybe that's what people have to wake up with up to is that we want peace. Everybody wants peace. We want to have enough to live on and have parties with our friends and watch football and whatever we want to do.
Some basketball.
Eat and live a healthy life, and and that's what we want, but we're not allowed. And the problem is that I see the media is getting into that, and it's pushing this one, the narrative of that. Yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this, and that's scaring, it's scaring me. And so I don't know, because every day I'm just wondering. I wake up in the morning and I'm ready. I look at the research and I look at the news. Is there a war yet? Big war? You don't know. It's like one thing happens one day, and they're supposed to meet the next day and have their treaty. And it just doesn't happen. And it's like, And I just think it's like if we need people who really want if 7.999 billion want peace, the people we elect should also want peace, because
Yeah,
that's what we want, but it's not working out. So you look at the elections, even in Europe, it's like, elections are being overturned, and and the ones who are being favored are not being allowed to. It's like dynasties. It's terrible, but that's what's happening.
it is.
But people have to be aware of this.
It's. I was listening to this other podcast, and this gentleman was on, and he was talking about in a world of 8 billion people, and he said the same number. I was like, oh, 8 billion. Yeah, I know that number. In a world of 8 billion people plus, is controlled by 100 families. 8 billion people. And think about it. I mean, one other thing, we talked about the Food and Drug Administration, that conglomerate, the this and that, and then there's the war machine.
Exactly.
Big dollars. And then there's the people that we always hear about, the conspiracy theories. But when he said that to the guy who asked him the question, I was like, holy shit, think about it. Literally 100 families.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Yeah, exactly. 8 billion people, they run our life. Why do we worry about money all the time? My God, our country, just us, what do we spend? $16 trillion a year? Probably 30% of that's wasted and corrupt. Why are we struggling out here? Well, back to the point, we're putting the wrong people in.
I want to just mention, I've been living here in Mexico for 45 years. And one of the things that's really, and there's like where I live, there's over 10,000 expats from the U.S. living here in San Miguel. And
where is that? How far down south is that?
It's 4 hours north of Mexico City. San Miguel de Allende. San Miguel de Allende it's considered either the first or one of the top three, in order of city pueblos. We call them small towns that were created in Mexico. It was created in 1562, I believe. That's like 60 years after Columbus came. So this is like an old. It was an artist community during the 60s with Ginsberg and all these writers that were writing about the war. They were living here in San Miguel de Allende. So,
okay, that's where I heard it. Okay.
So, but the thing is, I think the United States is very special because money is such a big factor there. When you come and you live in Mexico, it doesn't have that driving. The people aren't as stressed out. It doesn't have the drive to, you got to make it because everything's so expensive there. You got to make more money, and you have to have this and that. And we're influenced by the United States, but in general, they're not that focused on that. They just focused on family more and getting along with each other, and you just feel the friendliness. That's one of the great attractions of Mexico. People come down here, they feel the warmth of the people. So I think that that's one of the things that's driving it, and then you mentioned the thing about the driving the wars and the deep state, the war machine you're talking about, the military industrial complex that's what it does. It just like keep it going. And they're involved in all over the world. We got to sell these arms. We got these arms. We got to sell them somewhere.
$8 billion over here to you. $8 billion over to here to you. On and on and on. Every time we turn around, I'm loving what some of the people are starting to reflect back to us on. Here, respect to everyone here seeking clarity and truth. You mentioned that earlier, and Tony. That's a beautiful statement. Thank you very much. You're getting quite a fan base growing here, my friend.
That's great
Michael,
to hear.
people are digging your vibe here. Chris Hanna, so refreshing to hear someone challenge the mainstream clearly challenge the mainstream media. I mean,
Well, it's
some
really incredible.
being shared here.
It's
Go ahead.
really incredible that you have your show here, because maybe 2 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do this, so
Or
it's
would
like
I?
it's opening up. Yeah. So it's like, more, there are people who are doing this, and it's hopefully it keeps on growing, and people start waking up, and
We have to.
helping others to wake up too.
And there's no excuse not to. There's really no all the things that you talk about, people avoiding, and I just don't want to hear it anymore. I know people that are like, it just scares me. I don't want to talk. It's like back in the old day, you didn't want to hear the cancer, that you have cancer, where if you get it early, you need to. Now it's a different thing, but back then they didn't want to hear it, right? Same thing here, only it's an entire generation. Branson, thank you. This is a powerful discussion.
Wow.
Dash.
Wow.
I like that. Oh, by the way, I forgot to do this. I promised this guy, Bradley, he started showing up a few weeks ago and really asked great questions here in different topics. I always promise that when I see you, Bradley, I'm going to give you a shout out. Thanks for being here and supporting us, Bradley. You're a great guy. Great show. Loving the raw truth here. Branson, again. Branson, you and Michael both now are my bestest friend in the world. So we got a group going here. And then Ronalda, she's also very active on the show. How do you feel about
ivermectin? With a V. It's
yeah.
a V. IVER. Right. Oh,
Okay.
ivermectin. Yeah. Well, it was incredible because ivermectin was always sold here in Mexico. It was like prohibited in the U.S. because you weren't anything that was against, that was the alternative, and it was ivermectin was used all over in Africa. It was like Africa uses ivermectin is so cheap. And Africa, they were using ivermectin, during the pandemic, and in Mexico too. Actually, the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, she was the governor of Mexico City. She was the head of Mexico City. And what she did during the pandemic, in order to keep out the people out of the hospitals, in case, of overcrowding, she gave out tens of thousands of kits of ivermectin free to the citizens. And you got your ivermectin and you got your paracetamol, just in case you got sick. But yeah, no, ivermectin is, and so cheap here, is like, I have ivermectin here in the house, for other things, you get a little sick. A lot of people, friends here, take it anytime they just feel like, I don't feel right or anything. They'll take a pill, ivermectin, because it's not very strong, but it was used by many, many people here when they got their, symptoms. So I even tried to send it to my son, because he wanted it in California, and I had to smuggle it through a friend of ours who was going to California to finally get it to him. And now I don't know if it's still, prohibited in the U.S. I think there's certain doctors or states that are allowing it. So I don't know what
there are.
Yeah,
there are. Yeah, now that you say that, I didn't realize that was all the rage about, I don't know, half a year into the pandemic, right? That discussion, because we weren't allowing it, and there was evidence and proof that it worked, and it cost, like you said, it cost a couple. It's like a low grade not bacteria. What's penicillin? A low grade. It's that, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it's low grade. It's not a big deal.
And it works amazing with, like you said,
It's been having a lot of success. It's interesting because you bring me, when you talked about what happened before at the beginning. Yeah, I don't know if you remember when Trump came in, he was pushing hydrochloroquine. I don't know if you remember that. That
I
was
do
also
remember.
that was
Oh, maybe that's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what yes, I remember that.
hydrochloroquine, and he
Yep.
wanted that. He was a big follower of that, and
Yes.
he wanted to make that the option open to the people at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was a no-no because of this drug companies were pushing the vaccine. So they said they didn't allow him to do that. They only allowed him to use it in hospital cases that were
Yes.
already people were already
Yes.
pretty gone, and that's a bit. It's not good for that. So that
No.
eliminated. So then they came out. Hydrochloroquine doesn't work or anything like that. And but he was actually behind that. And if that would have happened, if they would have allowed him, but you see where the power is. They didn't want him to do that, so it
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Going way back, you remember the scientist Tesla, what 1800 something like that.
Yeah, right.
We all know the car, but he actually created electricity that wouldn't have to cost anybody anything around the world, and that was obviously Edison didn't want anything part of it. That's where all this stuff. There's so much that could be different now. I don't. Ronalda, I know she knows what she's talking about, but like I told you, if I understand it, everybody else here is. Do you believe we will be having our 15-minute towns by 2035? I did research on you, and she's picked out some stuff I don't know about. What's that about? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I hope not. Yeah, it's
What does
like,
that mean?
oh God, it means that the future is going to be, we're going to be living in little towns. You won't have to leave your town. Everything will be within
Oh,
15 minutes of
oh,
everything will be within 15 minutes of you, either your car or whatever. You won't have to, everything will be within that town. You don't have to go to anybody else's town. But if you want to go to somebody else's town, you'll have to get special permission. So it's really supposedly a form to control people, keep them in a space so that they can see what you're doing. If you're following the climate change thing, in other words, if you're, how many units did you use? You're not going to have, if you use too much, if you had too big of a carbon carbon
footprint.
footprint, you won't be able to travel to another town, or we're going to close down your bank account. So that's the future of the 15 minutes. It's more control over people. But when you have them in a space of very short, small, but they're working on that. I mean, there's even people talking about these 15-minute towns in with the fires that happened in Hawaii, and maybe the ones in the latest ones in LA. But I think there are already 15-minute towns in Dubai, or they're working on it. But it's the
they've been working on that a lot.
Yeah, right.
My family's in California, in Orange County. My mom has a store there called Fullerton Music Centers, obviously a musical thing, and she owns the building there. It's an old Levitt's factory, and behind it they started building some buildings, and they were selling it as your apartments or house or whatever it is. Apartments here, grocery stores here. You're working, all within the same building. You literally don't have to leave your building. You got a grocery store, restaurants. I mean, that's a real thing, and it's been a real thing. I think I started hearing about it 15 years ago or something, right?
Well, it's part of the movement of the World Economic Forum, the world government, and I just, I don't think that the World Economic Forum is gonna, work out long term.
No.
That's my own opinion, because I don't think. I have this other thing. I don't know if you want to get into it about the multipolar world.
You mean North? What do you mean multipolar?
Multipolar world, the BRICS. Again, you have the unipolar world, which is the West. I don't know if you, but anyway, it's this.
Samir, open it up. Open it up.
Okay,
We got.
okay.
We Yeah,
I think that's one of the most important topics as far as the wars are concerned.
let's talk about it.
Okay, so to me, it's like if you know about the BRICS, these are countries that are it's with China and Russia and India and the global
No.
South, the global South. It's the BRIC. They're actually meeting. They had their meeting last year. They're having the next meeting in Brazil. Well, the BRICS is the original members of the BRICS were Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So
God,
that was
good.
the BRICS, and now the BRICS is there is I think 12 or 14 countries. So you have Saudi Arabia. You have it's growing because the BRICS is the idea of the unipolar world. There will not be any one country power running the world, and it's going to be where you're a sovereign nation. It's building sovereignty where countries will be respected, and they will be helping each other grow, and they won't be taking over a country because of their resources and not caring about the people at all. And so it's going to be, that's the unipolar world that is actually happening. Yeah. And there are like 40 countries that are interested in becoming part of the unipolar world because they don't want to be sanctioned anymore. They don't want to be threatened anymore. They don't want to be bullied anymore. So I think that's what's facing the West right now. Yeah. And I think that this is my own opinion of what I listen to. I think that Donald Trump has an incredible opportunity if he follows through that he really wants peace in the world. Because the big problem with the U.S., and this is what he's promising in the U.S., is that he wants to make America great again, and he wants to he wants to make America. But he can't do that if he's focusing on wars all around the world, because if all the money's going to the world, to the other parts of the world, and and he's spending in arms or money, it's like the people in the U.S. they want to have their country back, and they want to have, and that's what he wants. That's what he was promising. And right now we're in the middle of this thing, so I'm just hoping that and I go from one side to the other. I believe and I don't believe, and and I think he has a great
trust but verify. Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Yeah. That's where I'm sitting with him, because I believe he is doing this because he loves the country. Yeah, and he's been talking about it since he was in his 20s, man. I mean, this isn't new. He used to be a Democrat,
and he's willing to talk to you during the whole previous administration. They never wanted to talk to the other guys, so everybody, he's the evil one. He's Hitler. And he's like, if you don't talk, you're not going to be able to reach anything. And it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. So now we're in the situation that hopefully we're going to, and, even talking with Iran and if you don't talk, there's not going to be any negotiations and things are going to get worse. So I'm hoping that this thing really happens, and we're going to know, and I think that there's an opportunity for a greater world, and there's an opportunity for the U.S. to really, if he wants to focus on that, really develop the country, and it could happen.
I think you're right. We're all very hopeful that you're exactly dead on. And it's funny, when you said that last part, made me think Trump is adored around the world. If you go over to other governments, Saudi Arabia, no, it's Qatar, where they gave us a plane. And like France did back in the day when they gave us the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
And they're adored out there. Great Britain, what they're doing, and Doge can be thrown in this mix as well. But what they're doing is people are like, okay, things are going good. This is how middle America, the middle class, needs this kind of thing, because it was all going dump. and yet half the people in our country where they're getting it. That's what some reporters out of other countries are saying, but the benefits go here, and yet we're fighting it. That's politics. That's evil. That's media. That's distortion of actual truth and fact. It looks like we've got every. You will not be. And Ronaldo says you will not be able to leave your own area. Remember, there was a movie out, and you had a time, and
I remember that.
A month. Remember that?
The time was running out, and you had to get more time.
Ching, you had to get more, or you bought something, you got less. And then you could go to remember that town that you could go to where they're here and all the poor people are here. And remember that? That was, I was thinking of that when you said it. What do you think? Closing thought here. How do we wrap this up? What do we do next? Besides you and I having a show every other day and having a watch party and having people come and actually do what we're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of enthusiasm here. Obviously, none of this is a conspiracy theory. It's what we need to do. What are your thoughts? And then give a wave to your amazing fans here. You got a really good go here.
Well, it's really great to hear that the support. And it's great because there's a lot of people out there that really, when you really hear something that sounds right, because it's even my both books was like that I wrote is like, you can have facts and, information, but when something sounds right, it clicks and it's like, yeah, that sounds right. And that's like a sort of intuitive thing, your gut feeling. And I think we ought to depend more on our gut feeling and just say, when you say that everybody in the world wants, almost 99.9% of the world wants peace, how come we don't have it? That's a pretty good thing, So I think that, and understand that, what's happening now is that the reasons why they're not, we're not at the point and we're still at, this conflict thing going on between peace and war is because there's still those powers behind it that are pushing. They don't want to give up their power. And that's what we're in right now. And I think that the more and more people that wake up and the more and more people we speak to, we just talk about it and we do our own research I think, Eisenhower said this thing, one of his last quotes, I remember, he said that when people really want peace in this world, the governments were going to have to step aside and let that happen. That's what he said.
That's beautiful. Really, that should be that should be part of our mantra.
Yeah.
My friend, great show. I'm going to kick you back into the green room. I'm going to say come back. I'm going to close out. Say hi. Would you do me a favor? You see over here on the right side of your pane, the private chat. You see that thing that says private chat?
Let me see.
No box. Second one up.
Wait a second.
Says
you're on the right side, right below my image, or no? My video? No.
No. You know where all the comments are?
Yeah, where they're coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. Right to the right of that is banners, media.
I see that.
Style,
different people are commenting.
And then there's the private chat. If you click on that, you send me information. I want you to put your follow-up information on there. Do you see the private chat yet or no?
No, I don't.
Okay.
The chat's on the right side, but is this? There's private chat. Yeah, I see. It's all the way on the right. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, the pane all the way over. Click on that while I'm wrapping up, and put your contact information, your book information, website, any social media, because you know how it goes. We've got a couple hundred people on here. There'll be hundreds more that'll be watching over the next weeks, and they always invariably make a comment. How do I get this? Well, I'm not the expert. You are. So I'm going to send them over to you as soon as I see that that little red light, I'm going to copy and paste it over into the comments. So give a big wave while you're doing that, if you would, Michael. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much for the
Hang
opportunity.
out. You bet. Wait for me on the other side in the green
Yeah.
room.
Okay.
All
I
right.
will.
All right.
Yeah.
Hang. All right. So I knew that was going to be a great show. Imagine that. I think mid 80s, something like that. I mean, my dad, he was going into, there's a lot of life there and a lot of life experience. And we're always told that experience is valuable. You know, we used to listen to the generations a lot more than we do now. And, you know, we're missing something by doing that. And that's you know, that's where we stand. It's been a great show. Please follow up with his contact. Oh, here it is right now. Contact information. Oh, I'm gonna copy it first. There it is. I'm rearranging my studio and I got stuff blocking things, and so I'm not being very very smooth with this. But when am I ever? Really? I mean, you know, there, and paste. So if there's no other questions at this point, we're going to leave it at that. There's the contact information, michaeldorfman.com. Interesting. I mean, I'm really glad so many people were here asking great questions because, you know, I mean, this is Insights and Straight Talk. The stuff we talk about is for the middle class. What concerns them, what empowers them. A lot of great points here. We're being driven. We're not driving our own lives, and that's not a cop out. That's a call to action. Let's get your shit together, guys and gals, men and women, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We need to get, and I mean, boys that can't have babies. That was a dig, but I couldn't resist it. At the end of the day, what we're doing affects positively or negatively all the generations that come behind us. And I say all because I hope there's a lot of generations that come behind us. I've got grandchildren. You know, I don't want to be the last generation on earth kind of thing, you know, or their beginning being the last generation on earth. Because I'm your host here in Insights and Straight Talk. My name is Rod Duff. Go out and wave to somebody today. Create a vibe. I stand here every day emotionally every day next to producer Barbie, and we talk all the time. And there's so many people that are into this. And now we're finally starting to come out of the shadows and be out of those shadows and start, like Michael said, get somebody who's, you know, you're both kind of close. And the more you do that, the middle grows, and that momentum works on itself, you know. And, you know, other than that, I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.